Have I been muted this whole time? That is wicked work. I've been talking to myself, guys. I apologize. All right, so we're about to run this back up from the top. All right, what is up, beautiful people? Okay, we're tuning in this Tuesday morning, well, Tuesday at noon here in Fort Bragg. Like I was trying to say, is we've been having some really great referral partnerships created here recently. So drop in the chat where y'all are coming from. All right, I am coming from Fort Bragg, North Carolina today. It is a little cloudy. We've been getting rained out here recently, but we needed it so badly. It's been humid as heck. Like I was saying, we got good old Alberto in here. We got Steven in here. We got Aisha, Danielle, DeMarco. We got Mike Smith. We got Patrick. Okay, Greenville, South Carolina. Steven, you're not far from me, man. Danielle's all the way out in New York. Okay. What part of New York, Danielle? New York, New York? The Big Apple? Upstate. Okay. Yes, ma'am. I know that's right. Then we got Aisha coming from Knoxville. Alberto coming from Connecticut. Mike's coming from my neck of the woods. Okay. Yes, ma'am. So like I was saying, guys, we're going to be talking about something really cool, something near and dear to my heart. And, you know, it's really about creating and scaling a real estate team. You know, that looks so different for so many different people. There's not a one size fits all. And we're going to kind of be going over that, some things to look out for, some things to be mindful of when starting a real estate team. You know, I've had my real estate team now for 4 years. And before that, I was on a real estate team where I was, you know, I started out in real estate as a whole for my career. And then I grew to be the productivity coach and then ended up going out on my own. And so like, I've never really been quote unquote a solo agent, if that makes sense. You know, I've always worked within a real estate team framework and I saw the ability to scale it. I saw the ability to provide not only value to so many more buyers and sellers and to our military personnel, but back to agents themselves. And, you know, personally, before we get into this, how I started my real estate team was, it was really just my brothers. I got all my brothers licensed, you know, and some of my good friends. And that's what it really started out with, you know, family oriented. And then we've kind of kept those values moving forward, right? So who's in this chat right now, guys? It's maybe a solo agent. It's maybe someone that has some type of iteration of a real estate team. You know, it may be someone that hates real estate teams and they just want to keep tabs on their enemies. You know what I'm saying? But realistically, I do believe, you know, real estate teams are only going to become more prevalent as, you know, our industry is around, because just being able to partner up and create this type of leverage is just, in some cases, man, it's invaluable. It's invaluable, especially for newer agents who are trying to get their feet wet in the industry. It can be very hard generating business and getting that startup. And a lot of them who join real estate teams are able to create that leverage, be able to cut their teeth on the business and be able to build, you know, an actual track record that they're able to go and do something on their own with. All right. So let's dive into it. Let me make sure I got everybody in here. All righty. So this is the field guide for creating and scaling a real estate team. From your first hire to an enterprise organization, the structure, systems, and leadership it takes to build something bigger than yourself. Guys, this presentation will be linked in the YouTube once we present it. We put it up there. So if you want it, feel free to go in there and check that out. All right. So what is a real estate team? All right, guys, many of y'all already know this, but let's get really granular, okay? A real estate team is a group of licensed agent and support staff who operate under a shared brand, systems, and leadership. They're usually pooling leads, tools, and accountability to serve more clients than any single agent could alone. Now, at the same time, I know plenty of solo agents that far outpace some small teams and things like that. They just have the systems, the tools to be able to do that. So that's not a knock on solo agents by no means, but when we're talking in the grand scheme of things, being able to have a force, a group force behind it, most times allows you to produce more leverage. So usually operates under one broker or brokerage, but with its own identity, standards, and structure. Members share lead flow, marketing systems, and back office support, you know, admins, TCs, things like that. Led by a team leader who usually sets the vision, culture, and compensation model. Here recently, I've actually been seeing some really crazy teams been created where it's more of like a board of team leaders, right? It's a consensus vote when they're making a lot of these larger decisions. So that's really been interesting to see kind of happen in the marketplace. So when we're talking about teams, let's talk about team sizes. And sometimes, like if you're looking at Real Trends. So if you're not familiar with Real Trends is in a quote unquote industry ranking, I guess, companies, platform, something along the such. that basically will allow you to see how you rank amongst your peers in our industry. All right, so Real Trends categorizes teams in the following: small, which is 2 to 5 agents. This is usually a starting point, a lead agent with early hires. This can sometimes be 1 or 2 agents with multiple admins, right? And then you start to grow, you start to be able to scale. You become a medium team, which is about 6 to 10 agents. It usually has defined roles. You're starting to really work out those systems and starting to get a real game plan of where you want to take this business. So defined roles and repeatable systems emerge. Next, once you get a little bit bigger, of course, large teams, 11 to 12 agents. Now you have dedicated ops and specialized agent lanes. Maybe you have a couple of seller-only lead sources that you're funneling to a couple of people that are really good with listings, just things like that, right? So a mega team. Now, mega teams are fairly new. 21 plus agents, and they usually have some type of volume requirement. Okay, so these are the high producing teams that usually have full operations. You'll see them within our EXP ecosystems, the ones with the more robust downlines and things like that. Now, a category of team that has just hit the scene, I would say very recently, at least to my knowledge, is called the enterprise team. All right, now the enterprise team, they almost operate as an independent brokerage within a brokerage, right? They do massive volume. They have very well-defined systems. These are, the Whistle Beer team. This is, Veronica Figueroa, the Gil Ramoses, the people that honestly have these such huge organizations within EXP's ecosystem that they could honestly go anywhere and do it themselves, but they chose EXP to do that, right? So this is the type of teams that you will see most commonly, right? So a domestic team, and this is something you'll see inside EXP's ecosystem, is usually a married or partnered agents sharing one business. And we'll kind of dive a little bit more into what that means. Of course, the mega teams, like we talked about, the high producing group with specialized roles in most cases. And then the enterprise team, they're more of a corporate feel, multi-hub, department driven, okay? And then in a lot of the earlier iterations of teams where we're seeing between small and sometimes even up into large teams is like a rainmaker model, where you have the one pillar, the team lead that usually generates most of the business and most of the opportunities. And then the other agents service those opportunities. And then you have admin that takes care of a lot of the back end. Right. And then you have sometimes the smaller teams, the 2 to 5 agents, where it's usually just admin and agent. Right. So you have a low amount of agent count, but you have a lot of systems and a lot of admins in the back end to allow you to leverage and do a lot more volume. OK, so in a lot of those cases, I'm not gonna lie, here in Fayetteville, Fort Bragg area, we see a lot of the smaller team setups where it's only a couple agents, but a lot of admin that allow them to do this in a large capacity. A lot of those times, those agents have been in the game, 20 years plus, that have established businesses before teams were very popular or anything like that, where they're just used to being basically the person in the spotlight. So they're able to support themselves with that admin team to keep that business running. Okay. So diving into it a little bit more, and this is for EXP itself, right? So a domestic partnership team is an EXP realty structure for legal married couples or recognized partners to combine their real estate business. They basically share one company dollar cap and streamline joint accounts. Okay, so if you are in a domestic team, if you and your partner have a real estate team, you will share one cap, and that saves you $16,000 in an annual cap right there. You know what I'm saying? So that I see Steven doing the thumbs up. This is a very, very big tool to use. I know a very good friend of mine, his wife doesn't even produce, but she got it. Now they're the domestic team, and now they have access to even more tools and systems within EXP's ecosystem now that they're a recognized team, right? So the shared cap is 16,000. It's one combined cap, not two, and it's simplified and joint. Joint system accounts, simplified fees, and one designated primary partner. Okay. Next, you have the mega teams, right? So this is up. Steve, you want to say something? You want to chime in?
Yeah, I have a quick question. So my wife's about a week away from getting her license.
Yeah.
So what does that look like as far as the domestic partnership team? Is it like one website?
So realistically, if you're talking about IDX wise, most of the time you could do it either way, right? There's 1,000 ways to skin a cat, but most times I see it's one centralized website, one IDX feed, and it's promoting the both of you. And then obviously in that site, you have a way for, a client to contact you individually, right? So the leads are funneled into one area. But if somebody wanted to say, speak to you specifically or speak to your wife specifically, the contact information or the contact pathway is still there, right?
So
Now,
it just goes in a one bold trail, is what you're saying? Okay,
yes,
perfect.
sir. 100%. Now, you could obviously, try to create your own IDX websites, but it's more to manage. You know what I'm saying? And then, the routing and everything. So it may be more beneficial. Yeah. Just to keep it on that one.
Appreciate you, brother.
All
Thank
right. So, yes, sir. Of course. So when we're talking about the mega teams, once again, high producing, mid to large group built for volume and specialization, they typically have dedicated buyers agents and listing agents, each in their own lane. I see a lot of the times where, they'll have that listing lead source funneled to specific listing agents, quote unquote, but they'll still have buyer agents that, may bring in a listing and they're still able to service those listings. When I see specialized agents, a lot of times I see that they have specialized lead sources being routed, because what I've seen and through experience is when you're talking to agents that want to join your team, whatever kind of team that looks like, is they don't ever want to be pigeonholed. You don't ever want to just tell them like you're going to be a buyer's agent or you're just going to be a listing agent, because what does that mean? Does that mean when my uncle comes and wants to sell their house that I can't sell it, I have to pass it on to this other person and get a referral fee? Now, don't get me wrong, there are some teams that operate like that and they may have the value to kind of overcome those objections, but I just kind of don't see the reasoning behind it, right? We got into real estate to be able to help people, and then why wouldn't you want to be able to person to directly help your loved ones? But I'll get off my soapbox there. All right, so they typically have dedicated marketing. They usually have in-house lead gen, branding, the marketing team, and content driving the pipeline itself to generate leads. And these mega teams, in most cases, have full-time operations. They have the admins, the TCs, and the VAs specifically broken out doing their own things. And when I mean VAs, I mean virtual assistants, people you can hire to handle tasks and CR management. And when I talk about TCs, I mean transaction coordinators, people that are taking, the deal itself from contract to close that allows agents to buy back more of their time. All right. And then the enterprise team, like we were talking about, it's much newer, right? And this is much more of a corporate feel, right? This is, you join an enterprise team and it's almost like you join a brokerage within inside of a brokerage, okay? So it's a massive, highly corporate real estate business that operates like an independent brokerage inside of a parent brokerage, right? There's multiple hubs, several locations on market, or several different markets under one organization. So, one thing that attracted me personally to EXP, and one of the reasons I will never leave EXP, is the fluidity. It's so easy to be able to seed a team in a different location, right? I'm in the talks of having a seed location in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I'm in Fayetteville, North Carolina, because I've been able to make relations and I've been able to create opportunities that allow me to create another team within inside the EXP ecosystem. And it's very easy. It's all you got to do is go to EXP World and go to the team hub and then just tell them, hey, I'm starting a team here. Here's the agent. This is the information. They send out the documents. Boom. Now you have a team out there. It's ridiculous how easy EXP has made it for you to be able to scale your operations in that sense. Okay. So these enterprise teams will have specialized departments, marketing, finance, training, and ops as distinct units, to be able to service the business, to be able to, uplift their agents, to be able to coach them, to be able to follow up and nurture old leads, the leads that are maybe a little bit more stale. A lot of these enterprise teams have VAs calling the older leads, to be able to stay top of mind. And then a lot of times in the enterprise team, you have strict organization tiers. You'll have like squad leaders. Like most times there will be agents that take responsibility over a group of smaller agents, usually more newer or green agents that need a little bit more hand holding. So you'll see a lot of that in those situations with the enterprise team. Like I said, very corporate, very structured. Okay. And now for the Rainmaker team, right? And this is, like I said, something you'll see very common when someone starts a team, right? It's built around a single lead founder, a top producer, or a visionary who generates the core business, right? They're the one that created the brand and the primary client leads, okay? So usually what I see in this case is an agent has been killing it, okay? They're really getting their systems down. They're really starting to bring in leads. They're being able to create repeatable and dependable outcomes when it comes to lead generation and closings. And they're like, I don't have enough time to be able to service all these clients. Okay. I don't have enough time to be able to service all these clients and to be able to spend time with my family or to be able to do the things that I actually want to do in life. Right. Because we all got into real estate to make our own hours and to work on our own time. But the thing that they don't talk about is once you get successful in real estate, you really don't have time. You're busy. So when you see these rainmaker teams start to be created, a lot of the times it is to create back that leverage. Okay, so usually the rest of the team converts the business they bring the rainmaker brings in and services that business, right? So if you're bringing in a lot of buyer leads, let's say you've been doing tons and tons of listings the past couple of years, and you're realizing these listings are bringing a steady flow of buyer leads that I don't have the time to personally handle. I cannot go to all these houses and see all of these properties, especially with all the inventory in these certain markets now. You bring on a buying agent or buyer's agent, sometimes called a showing agent, right? So that showing agent is the one that takes this buyer throughout all of these properties, and then you end up giving them a split, right? The rainmaker team usually doesn't have that much admin team. Usually they're still in the trenches doing everything themselves. But one engine, the leader drives lead generation and brand. Leverage, the agents focus on the closing, not prospecting. A lot of the times, this rainmaker, like I said, is generating all of that business. And the risk, right? It's heavy dependent on one person's output, right? How many leads can the rainmaker bring in? So that's one thing to think about when talking about creating that team. If you're planning to step up and become a rainmaker, you need to think about, hey, am I going to be able to have the consistent amount of business to be able to, basically keep my showing agents fed, to be able to pay my admin team and things like that. DeMarco, I see you have your hand raised. What's up, buddy?
Oh, we have a few people trying to get into the chat.
Okay, hold on. Let me see. All right, Tuesday. I just got him in. Thank you, brother, man.
No problem.
All right. So next one, the agent admin team. Like we were talking about, most times these are smaller teams, maybe a couple of agents, but heavy admin team. So this means that they have their systems ironed out in most cases, right? They have the processes, they have the tools, they have the people. This is usually about one or two, maybe sometimes more producing agents supported by a workforce of admins and virtual assistants. Maximum leverage with minimum agent headcount, okay? So that means a lot of the business is being funneled through these agents, okay? This is the lean machine right here, okay? Few agents, many support roles. You're leveraging admins and VAs to absorb the non-dollar productive work, right? MLS input, right? Getting it marketed, getting it on, posting on your Facebooks and your social medias and things like that. Making sure your CRM is audited. A lot of those things that you just do in the day-to-day that you don't even think that you could actually delegate to an admin or a VA. And that's time that you can be back out in the field or be back having those conversations that are driving dollar productive work, right? So the focus of this type of team is for agents that stay in front of clients and contracts. I've even seen some teams where they have their TCs doing the contracts for them. You know what I'm saying? So that means the agent is solely focused on converting that business, having those conversations. Paperwork sometimes takes an hour or more when you have to do all the research. So being able to be in the driver's seat of your own business and have the knowledge of be like, I don't have to do all this admin work. I don't have to have this back end work that is going to bog me down. I can stay out showing homes. I can stay converting, or even more so, I can have that time back at home, right? And we're going to talk about what that's called in just a moment. Okay, so EXP types, team types, sorry. So you have the self-organized, right? So this is when you're like, okay, it's time. I'm ready. I've thought about it. Let's go talk to EXP about what it's going to take to get this set up. All right, let's get this person in here. So first and foremost, you have the self-organized, right? This is usually the newer style teams, the ones that are just now emerging. So this is 2 or more agents. Each agent has a full $16,000 cap, okay? This is the most accessible entry point. There's no production minimum. This is when we're talking about actually creating our team with inside EXP. This is like, I'm going to the team hub. I'm telling them I'm ready to do this. Let's make it happen. Okay, so when you're going through that onboarding and you're going through that creation process, you're going to have to kind of determine what type of team type you are. All right, so a standard is 2 or plus agents. Each of them has the full $16,000 cap. That's the most important thing when we're talking about this right now, because that means each agent, right, the 20% or that EXP takes from every single one of their deals until it reaches that $16,000, they do not cap. Okay, and that's going to be important as we move into these next types, right? So a standard team, right? This is what they call a reduced cap team. Okay, so members cap at $8,000. The team lead caps at $16,000. Right, so that means your members now have half of the cap. Okay, that is big when you're talking about the structure of your team, right? Because you're putting $8,000 back in their pocket by doing more than 30 deals a year or $6 million in production. Okay, so if you're doing 30 or more deals a year or have $6 million in production in the prior 12 months, you qualify for a standard reduced cap team. All right, and you may be like, well, Caleb, I'm just trying to get this started. It doesn't really matter. Can I get a change later? You may be able to get a change later, but why risk, losing money right then and there? That's half. Okay, mega icon top tier team, right? So this is 11 plus members with inside an EXP real estate team. They have a $4,000 cap. Okay, if you are creating a team inside of EXP, right, and you plan on scaling, your goal is to low key get the mega icon top tier, because the value that brings to your agents, your cap is $4,000. And then after that, all you have to do is worry about the team splits, right? So you don't have to worry about EXP taking all your money, right? So this has a high volume threshold. It usually is a $40+ million. You have to do that much in volume, and a team cap guarantee. Okay, guys, what I stress to you, right, is to really understand the benefits between each of these, right? When you're going and you're talking to the team hub, they'll explain, they'll answer every question you have. Make sure you really understand, because in certain different types of teams get access to certain different types of tools within EXP's ecosystem. We're not even talking about just the cap, but different tools, different opportunities, and things like that. So that's something to really be mindful of. Okay, and then of course, like we've talked about, you have the domestic partnership team type. That is married or partnered agents like Steven that share one $16,000 cap and joint accounts on the EXP system. Okay, so that means you and your partner only have one cap. Each deal that y'all do contributes to that cap. Okay. All right, so why would someone create a team? Right, and that's a good question. It's not for everybody. Some people just want to knock out the deals, call it a day. There is an inherent stress. There's an inherent responsibility. There's an inherent, call for leadership when you're creating a team. Even if you just feel like you're just going to generate these leads, pass them on to these agents, you have a sense of responsibility. In some cases, I've seen people even get in trouble with their respective real estate commissions for agents on their team. Team lead had nothing to do with the transaction at all, but because the agent was under their supervision, they got dragged into it as well. So why would someone decide to create a real estate team? One, like we talked about before, you have more leads than you can handle. You convert opportunity you'd otherwise let slip in your day-to-day, right? You buy back your time. This is why I see a lot of team leaders create a real estate team. Okay, they want to leverage others so your calendar isn't the ceiling, right? So you can do more business, so you can build a little bit more back at home or on whatever you're trying to do, right? One thing for me was build an exit plan. One of my mentors, and when I first got into real estate, they were in real estate for 25 years. And for them, they loved the grind. They loved the hunt. They loved the sale, and a more power to them. But when I look at it, I don't want to sell real estate for 25 years. I don't want to have to worry about where my next deal is and where my next closing is. So, creating a team is one way, not the only way, but one way to build an exit plan. It creates an asset that runs and sells without you. Okay. So that's another big thing, because if you're not thinking about how you're getting out of the business or how you plan on retiring, guys, next thing you know, you're 82 years old at the closing table. Okay. Something to think about. All right. Some people, especially in our military community, they have just this itch, this urge, and they want to lead. They are natural born leaders. If you have that quality, that is a rare quality. There's a lot of people that want to be leaders, but don't understand the inherent risk and responsibility that comes with being a leader. Okay. You want to grow people. You want to foster people. It's not always about your bottom dollar. Sometimes you're going to have to take losses to put other people forward. Sometimes you're going to have hard conversations. You know what I'm saying? That you typically wouldn't have to have as a solo agent. Right? You're growing people. You're not just closing transactions when you decide to actually build a team. Okay. And, you may want to create a team because you have aspirations for something bigger. Maybe you do have the work ethic and you watch too much Selling Sunset and you want to make a real estate team and you want to sell luxury and you want to do this, that, and another. And you feel like you have the work ethic and you feel like you have the qualities and the values it's going to take to go the distance in that run. That's a reason to create a real estate team. You want to physically see what you're seeing in your mind. You want to be able to put it out into the world. And you want to be able to build something. Right? I've heard so many people that just great leaders want to basically, great leaders want to breed great leaders. Okay. So you have aspirations for creating something great. All right. So how to create a team inside of EXP? You have to qualify as a leader, right? So they're going to look at you. They're going to see if you're in good standing. They're going to see if you meet the production thresholds for the team that you want to create. You're going to have to choose your structure. You're going to have to pick self-organized, standard, mega icon, or a domestic team based on your volume and cap goals. Next, they're going to make you build an agreement. That was new. Like when I first got my team in, I didn't have to have necessarily a team agreement. I think it was within the last year, they require that you have to have a team agreement now. So this has to define the splits between you and your agents, the roles, the expectations in a written team agreement. So, what happens to the leads when the agent decides to leave, things like that. You have to submit to team services. So submit your roster, your agreement to EXP team services and register each member. And then you need to set up the systems, right? So it says KV Core because obviously that's one of the CRMs that EXP provides. I think it's now called Bold Trail. So configure Bold Trail or whatever CRM that you have, configure whatever process that you have running currently for you. It needs to be routed so all your agents have access to it. So that means lead routing. That means they need to have access to your branding. They need to understand, the do's and don'ts of what to post and what not to post depending on your values, and shared accounts for the team. Okay. And then you need to maintain that roster. Keep the roster current monthly and requalify at each cap reset. That's not something you really need to do. EXP will let you know if you have not qualified to keep your current status, or if you have qualified to, let's say, be promoted to a mega icon team. All right. So like I was talking about, when we're moving between, a self-organized team to a standard reduced cap to a mega icon team, and we're talking about the reduced cap itself. If you're a self-organized team, it's $16,000 for every single agent. If you are a reduced cap team, it is $8,000 for all of your agents except the team leader. If you are a mega icon team, it is $4,000 for all of your agents. The reason I'm bringing this back up is because that is value proposition. Okay, that is the value you bring when you are talking about bringing an agent to your team. Your value proposition is the things you offer that will guarantee an agent's success when they join your team. Okay, this is the bulk of the conversation you're having when you're recruiting. Okay, this is the bulk of the information you're marketing when you're trying to bring in new agents or talent. Okay, so what is a value proposition? A value proposition is the clear promise of the results and experience an agent gets by joining your team. The specific reason a talented agent chooses you over going solo or joining a competitor. Okay, answers one question. And this is just being completely honest, right? You can sit here and frame it however you want. The question realistically is, what's in it for me? Okay, when an agent is interviewing for your team, they want to know what's in it for them. Okay, must be specific, believable, and hard to get elsewhere. And that's sometimes hard in the marketplace with there being so many different AI tools, so many different structures and things like that. But at the same time, it is very easy to be able to carve it out and be able to stand strong on what you believe your value is. It's the foundation every recruiting conversation is built on. Danielle, I see your hand up. What's up? What's up?
Sorry, I'm unpausing this. I'm new to this. Anyway, with the team situation, what is the split with your team lead and you besides the cap? You know what I mean?
And see, that's the beautiful thing. It depends on the team. It depends on the team lead. The team leader gets to create that split, right? So it could be anything, right? For a newer agent, it could be 50-50. For a more experienced agent, it could go all the way up to 70-30. If it just really depends, right? And that's the beautiful thing about EXP itself is they don't get involved in that. They allow you, the team lead and the agent, to be able to negotiate those splits themselves.
Oh, okay. So that would be another question if you were wanting to join a team.
That is a big question. Yes, ma'am. I would
be what's in it for me to join your team? Why should I join your team over so-and-so's team. Well, I only do this commission split and they do this commission split. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. And see, that's another point that I was going to touch on. So I'm glad that you brought that up. When you are recruiting, it's what I was going to touch on the recruiting piece. So I'll speak on it a little bit and I'll fully touch on it when we get there. But split is always going to be a big question. Not only what's in it for me, but inside of that question, what's the split? Now, it's hard to sometimes have that conversation with, prospective agents joining your team because you may not have the best split, right? But you may provide value in lead generation and tools and systems and admin backend support where you have a business to run as a team lead, right? You have a business to run, you have overhead you have to pay. So, that you might not have the best split on the block, but, if you go to a team that's, giving you a 90-10 split, but they're not giving you transaction coordinating services, well, that means you have to write all your offers. It means you're going to have to respond to every single email that comes in on every single transaction. You know what I'm saying? So it's all about a leverage thing too. So I would say, especially if you're an agent that's thinking about joining a team, that first and foremost, a great perspective. You definitely join a team if you think it's best for you, but also see what you're getting for that split, right? Because I know teams that think that, I'm just going to give them a 60-40 split, but I'm not going to offer too much. That's basically taking somebody's money, right? Because that's kind of not the best split. And you're not offering anything. You're not offering leads, no CRM, y'all aren't really having team meetings. Like, what are you really offering for the money you're taking from that agent? So that's one thing I'm going to talk on here in a moment. But like I was saying, so the value proposition is the foundation of almost every recruiting conversation. Okay. So how to build your value proposition? What is considered a fair offering leads and decisions? Steven, we'll touch on that then, because that is a great question. Okay. And I won't have the end all be all answer, but I have a great response to that. Okay. So how to build your value proposition. Strong offers are built usually on 4 levers when we're talking about a real estate team. Okay. You don't need all 4 maxed out, but you need to own at least one if we're talking about having a solid footing in a recruiting conversation. Okay. Leads. I'm not going to lie to you guys. Most real estate teams offer leads. Okay. Especially if they're getting a good split off of you. So that should be the bare minimum. I'm not even gonna lie to you. I would at the very least ask what those lead sources are, right? Not all lead sources are created equally. Okay. So that's very, very pivotal. I would even go as far to ask, and you may surprise the team leader you're interviewing with or the recruiter you're interviewing with, what is the average conversion rate of that lead source with your team, right? That's going to put them on their toes. Do they know their business? Because if they offer all these lead sources, but on average with their team, they're converting at a 3%, 4%, that's not, I'm saying like, that's marginal, right? So systems and tools. This right here is something that I feel like should be one of the most poured into levers. Like you should really have this one maxed out, I'd say, as a good starting point, because a lot of the times when a newer agent joins the industry, it's like, I always say, it's like getting thrown into the ocean with no life raft. Right. And being told to swim to shore. You don't know where shore is. You don't know what to do. You don't know where to go. You don't know how to do it. You barely even know how to kick your legs. So systems and tools and processes give your business and that team the backbone, right? Creating the SOPs, the standard operating procedures. So when an agent has a question, not only can that question get answered, but they know exactly where to go for that answer. Okay. So we're talking about the CRM. Your client relations manager. What are you using? Are you using Follow Boss? Are you using Bullet Trail? Are you using Lofty? Whatever it may be. Being able to not only just have that, but also have the education to teach an agent that, right? Because that's big, right? You can sit here and give them the best CRM in the world, but if they don't know how to use it, it's no good to them. The best CRM, they say all the time, the best CRM is the one you use, right? And you're not going to use it if you don't know how to use it, right? So also marketing. A lot of the times, the value proposition is, hey, we'll handle your marketing. We'll promote you when you close, when you get things under contract, agent of the month. We'll promote you on our socials. We'll pay for your listing signs when you get listings. We'll pay for your client gifts when you're closing on buyers. All of those are good different types of marketing value props for agents. Transaction coordination. So being able to have a transaction coordinator that takes, from going under contract all the way to the closing table. Right? They're the one that's reaching out to inspectors, scheduling inspections. They're the ones that's briefing you about the key points of the transaction. Hey, this is where we're at. You may want to pay attention to this. You may want to give the listing agent a call. Hey, inspections just came back. They look like shit. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead and call the buyer. Let's do some damage control. You know what I'm saying? Having a transaction coordinator is worth their weight in gold when we're talking about a value proposition, because we're talking about taking time off an agent's hands, right? And new agents may not understand it at first, but an agent that has done a deal or two, they understand, man, that back end will eat you alive. Back end will be the reason you do not scale if you do not have systems and tools and processes in place, okay? And tech that make agents more productive. This could be anything, right? This could be me personally. I'm a big fan of Real Scout. If you're not familiar with Real Scout, you know, we can have a sidebar conversation. It's a behavioral analysis, in my opinion. Basically, it scrubs your CRM and it shows what your clients are really doing. We can talk about that later, but just having tools and tech that allow you to sit there in a conversation with an agent and say, I can take this off your plate. I can provide this value to your business. I can help you grow in this aspect of your business. You know, because a lot of the time, you know, when you're having a conversation with the team lead, and I know this from experience, they just throw at you what they can give you, but they don't ever ask you, what do you want to do? You know, do you want to focus on new construction? Do you want to just focus on sellers, on buyers? You know, asking questions like that, especially on the team lead side, will help you see if an agent will even be a good fit for your team, right? Maybe you're not looking for somebody that's, you know, just trying to focus strictly on new construction. Maybe that's not the role you're trying to fill. So the culture. I will say, guys, culture is number two. I say culture and agent development fight for number two, in my opinion, because once you have an agent, development and culture is what's going to keep the agent, right? How are you building this agent's business? When this agent looks back on their time with your team, do they see a positive growth, measurable positive growth in the numbers, right? And then also on the culture side of things, when the market is tough, when it's time to have hard conversations, when an agent is, let's say, having hard times in their life, the culture is what's going to make sure that agent stays with that team. That family feel, right? That open door policy, being able to speak to the team lead and to the other agents and be able to have someone to lean on when times are tough, right? To have those to celebrate when times are up, right? Not only that, but accountability. You know, a good culture inside of a team means you can have hard conversations with your agents and they're not going to get pissed off. They're not going to get mad. It's not an aggressive conversation because it's one from caring. I know what your goals are. We've talked about it extensively. And what you're doing right now is not meeting your goals, right? So what are we going to do about it? What can I do to help? Because all the time, it's not always just the agent, right? It's sometimes the team as well. What can I do? What can the team do to uplift you and support you as an agent and your goals, right? And that's part of the culture, right? Having that community and a place people are proud to belong to, right? And then also on the agent development, that's why I say like these two are so hard, like for a second place, because agent development is the coaching, the training. This is where you're actually molding as a leader your agents into something you want to see out in the marketplace, right? Whatever your values are, whatever your mission is, that's what you're molding these agents to reflect. Okay. And that's something you got to think about. And we're about to touch on that right here. Okay. Values and mission. They matter. I would say this needs to be, before you even go talk to team services at EXP, you need to understand what your values and your mission is. Because this right here is going to answer the questions when you feel like you don't have answers to. Okay. Clear values and mission are the operating system of your team. They decide who you recruit, how you make hard calls, and why people stay when a competitor waives a bigger split. All right. Value tells you who fits and who doesn't. Simple as that. If you have a strong values and you have a strong, clear mission, you can tell very easily and very early on when an agent either is going to fit that mold or not. All right. Now, don't get me wrong. There's some teams that just mass recruit, it's a numbers game for them. Right. And some do it successfully, but I would definitely, you know, especially coming from a team leader aspect, look at how their culture is and ask yourself as an agent, like as a team leader, is it worth it to go that route? As an agent interviewing teams to join their team, and you see how many agents are joining, you may think that, oh man, they're the hottest team on the block right now. They always got somebody. Look at their processes. Have a conversation with them. What is their retention rate? How often do agents leave? Right? Because that's important as well. All right, it's a compass. Your values and mission are a compass. The mission guides decisions when the answer isn't obvious. So just like I said before, and it's the glue. The shared purpose retains people that money alone cannot, right? So one of our values, open door policy. I tell all my agents, man, you can always talk to me about anything. And even more so, hold me accountable, because I promise you I'm gonna hold you accountable, right? If I'm slacking, if I'm slipping, let me know, because I can only get better, and I'm not gonna be aggressive about it. I'm not gonna take a diss to it, man. Because I brought you onto the team. I don't want to say hire. I brought you onto the team to make the team better. And part of making the team better is making me better, right? That's why we have that open door policy. Simple as that, right? So when we're talking about recruiting and finding talent, right? Always be recruiting if you're a team that wants to scale big. You know, like we talked about before, there are some teams where it's a domestic partnership. It's them and their partner. Maybe that's all they want to do. There's nothing wrong with that. Maybe you are a smaller team, right? And you're just a team of assassins, hard hitters. That's okay too. But when you start to get to the medium and the large size teams and the mega icon teams and things like that, you do always want to be recruiting, right? Because at the same time, you always want to be scaling the output. And what I mean by that is this: as you start to transact, as you start to bring agents on, your lead flows are going to become more robust, because you're going to start generating more. Your agents themselves are going to be generating sphere of influence business. And at a certain point, you're going to realize, I need more agents, right? I'm not always saying that you need to always be hiring agents, but you always need to be having conversations. You always need to be having a good feel of the talent that's out there looking, because you never know when you're going to need another listing agent. You never know when, you know, you may land an absolute terrific opportunity with a builder to take over a subdivision, but you look at it and you don't have the muscle to be able to make that happen. Or you get presented a new referral partnership and you just say, we're kind of spread thin amongst all of our other things. So always be recruiting to know not only what talent is out there, but to always have a ready flow of agents to take on any type of opportunity that comes around. And I know that sounds like, oh, duh, Caleb, but no, seriously, because when we get into the thick of the business, you're not always thinking about, you know, getting just scaling or bringing on more agents or having more of those conversations, but it is very important, especially as you start to scale. Okay. When you're recruiting and finding talent, you want to lead with the value prop, right? You want to talk about the value your team brings, all the things we just talked about. You want to be able to not only have it, but to be able to communicate it. Right? That's a big thing. That's one thing I had to work on very early on in my team, is like, man, I set all these systems up. I was almost obsessed with making a system and a process that made it easier for agents to do transactions. But then it got to the point of being able to communicate that. And I was just like, here it is. No, you got to be able to communicate it. And even more so, like we talked about, got to be able to educate them on it, especially if they're coming from a different team, especially if they're coming from a different framework. Okay. You need to hire attitude and fit, coachability and character over raw production. Okay, skills can be taught all day. Okay, is somebody coachable, right? Does somebody have good character? They can have done, you know, 10 million in sales, but they're a total dingbat. You know what I'm saying? That's going to affect your culture. That's going to bring down the overall, you know, emotion and flow of your team. Oh, I don't like coming to team meetings. You know, X, Y, and Z is there, and he's always, you know, doing the most, this, that, and other. That will kill your culture faster than you believe. All it takes is one bad egg. All right. Referrals and networks. Your best agents know other good agents. Ask and reward. This is something that I have been, the reason I put it in here is because my coach recently told me about this as we're trying to scale. And, you know, it just made sense. It's something I never even thought about. You know, every single day my agents do deals with other agents, right? And who is our best, like, who is the best voice for our team to promote us and to be able to solicit agents? It's the current agents. They can tell their own success stories, right? So utilize that. Tell your agents, hey, if you do a great deal with somebody and you feel like, you know, they'd be a good fit for our team, have that conversation. And then if you're able to bring them to the team, reward that agent that recruited that member, that new member, right? Dinner, whatever it may be, dinner, amusement park tickets, you know, a vacation at the beach, whatever it may be, because we got to think about it like this. You know, we're with EXP. If they just recruited somebody, that's not somebody in your downline. All right. Not only that, that's somebody in your team. That's a double whammy. Boom. Right. Reward your agents for bringing those type of opportunities to your front doorstep. It'll increase them. You'll be surprised. Okay. Content and visibility. Market your team so talent comes to you, not just outbound. Right. So that's usually done on social medias, Google's, you know, the whole nine. When you have a closing, you typically post it. Are you recording? One thing that I found was, and it's a use case, and it just, once again, another thing that just clicked, and it comes back to, you know, your agents being your best spokespeople, is when you have a closing, right? And they get a video of your agent. Yeah, we just closed on 123 Banana Street, man. I'm so excited for my buyers. You know, wouldn't have been possible without the tools and systems at XYZ team. You know, I can't do better than that. Any type of variation of that video is a massive promotion for your team, okay? Because not only are you showing the success that agents having, you're showing the success that you're putting buyers into homes, but they're also throwing a callback. I wouldn't have been able to do it without Sarah, the transaction coordinator over at XYZ team, right? She really held together the transaction for us. So being able to have your agents advocate for your team will honestly create a pipeline of recruiting you never even thought about. So that's something to think about. And then the last thing, and this is another critical thing, is having clear onboarding, having a plan for those agents once they join, a clear plan. This is something I had to learn the hard way as well. Okay. Being able to take on a new agent and say, all right, day one through at least day 1 through 30, this is what we got you planned for. Okay. You need to learn our value. You need to learn our mission statement, and you need to be able to understand how our team works, who to go for when you have a certain issue, who to submit, you know, documents to when you get something under contract. If you have an issue, this is who you speak with. If you have a question, this is who you speak with. You know, being able to clearly explain those things, that's onboarding, right? I've seen tons of agents leave a real estate team or even just a real estate firm for lack of onboarding. Once again, they're thrown out into that ocean with no raft. They don't know exactly what to do. Having a clear onboarding process will allow that to be streamlined. I've heard so many coaches and so many people talk, especially when creating a team, having a very solid onboarding will allow you to keep an agent more than almost anything else. Because inside that onboarding, they learn the value. They learn the reason why we're doing this, our mission statement. They come to learn the people that are actually doing things in our admin teams and our transaction coordinators. They learn who the other agents are, you know, who the other top producing agents are. They may have a question, or, you know, they may run into a situation they need some guidance on. So having a clear onboarding process allows that agent to become entrenched in your team, right? And allows them to assimilate so much easier. All right. Things to think about when creating a team, okay? And this is more so on the responsibility side of things. And as an agent who's thinking about joining a team, this is something to think about for the team lead that you're either interviewing with or, you know, just runs the team as a whole, right? Do they care about your livelihood? As a team lead, man, you're responsible for how agents make their living now. Obviously, agents are always supposed to be prospecting, but you have to take some type of responsibility. You're taking, you know, upwards of half of their commission check. What value are you offering them for that? Because they could go solo and keep all of their commission. Their growth, that's something you're very responsible for, because what? An agent joins your team and they only do, let's say they want to produce, but they're stuck at doing 5 or 6 deals a year, but you're not having conversations on how to break that ceiling, see where that issue is, where that blockage is preventing them. You know, an agent, when they start to get complacent and they feel like, you know, they're just floating, those ads on Facebook for another real estate team become a lot more, you know, provocative. They sound a lot better. And then they go and they interview with that other team lead, and the team lead asks them, well, what have you done in the last 2 years, 3 years? Well, I've only did about 5 or 6 deals each year. You know, I keep pushing. I don't know exactly why. And the agents, the team lead's like, well, what are they doing to help you with that? They're giving me a pat on the back and they're just giving me leads. You know what I'm saying? So becoming responsible for an agent's growth will help you mold an agent into where they want to go, and they are going to ultimately respect and want to stay in that team. If you help somebody achieve their goals, they're going to want to stay in that area. They're going to believe that you can help them achieve their goals. It's going to be less likely that they're going to field offers from other recruiters. Okay. Leadership and mediation. If you are somebody that has a hard time having difficult conversations, whether it be an agent that's not producing as well as they're supposed to, or that's aligned with their goals. Let's say, you have an agent that has a problem file. You have to talk to clients that are being, difficult to work with. Let's say you're going to have a conversation with another team leader broker about a difficult agent on another side of a transaction. There's so many times where a team leader has to step in, and you're going to need to be that person that could have those conversations and respectfully fight for your agent. Obviously, if your agent's in the wrong, do what you need to do, have that conversation with the agent. But a lot of the times you're going to have to fight for your agent, and you need to be able to have those hard conversations. So if you're somebody that feels like, I don't like having hard conversations, I like to skirt around that, that's something you're really going to have to think about. Okay. And then also leadership, right? When you're having your weekly, monthly, quarterly, whatever team meetings you're having, they're going to be looking at you. But what's going on in the market? What's our next step? What are we going out here showing these houses or doing these listing appointments for? What's the goal? What's the purpose? Leadership allows you to be able to illustrate and communicate what the mission is. Okay. And then one thing I can say is there's a lot of leaders that talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk. Okay. And sometimes, as an early young team leader, you're going to have to learn that the hard way, right? You're going to have to stay true to your word. You're going to have to, if you have let's say you have an activity limit for your agents, they have to make a certain amount of calls, a certain amount of this, that, and other. You better follow it. Or if you don't follow it and your agents call you out on it, you can't get mad. You better suck it up. You're a leader. You have to lead by example. Okay. You have to own your mistakes. You're going to have to be able to help others celebrate their wins. And a lot of the times, especially when life is lifing and you're being pulled a million different ways, sometimes you can forget about that. And then that's when an agent feels underappreciated. And that's when an agent starts looking at other teams. So that's something to think about as well. Okay. And then also like a plan to scale. And it's not even a scale like more agents. How are we doing more business? Do you only want to do 30 deals every single year as a team, whether it be 2 agents or, you have a team of 10, and you're only doing 100 a year? No, you want to scale. You want to get bigger. What's that plan? Right? What are we doing? Are we increasing our lead sources? Are we increasing our coaching for our agents so they can convert more? Are we adding more agents to service more business? What's the plan? Right? And that's something to think about. Okay. You should be doing at least a yearly plan and evaluating that plan throughout that year. Are we meeting the goals? Is this new lead source we're invested in, is it working as well as we thought it would? It is a business after all. And if you don't track it, you're not going to grow it. Okay. And then things to be cautious of, right? I've alluded to it a couple times and a couple of the points, but recruiters, right? A lot of these mega teams, a lot of these enterprise team guys, they got recruitment departments, okay? Where all they're doing is calling agents. They're looking at their production this year. They're looking at the production last year, and they're calling them up. Hey, how you like it over there? What's working for you? I saw you did a lot more production last year than you did this year. You know what I'm saying? So that's why that value proposition is so important. That's why as a team lead, walking the talk is so important. Because if an agent is loyal to the mission, to the things the value you've provided to them, those conversations are easy. Those recruiting conversations. Oh, no, I'm good over here at XYZ team. I appreciate it. Thank you. Boom, they hang up. Okay. But if you allow them to have doubt will be seated. Okay. Another thing to be cautious of is overhead, guys. It can be expensive to run a business, especially when we're talking about other people, especially when we're talking about hiring admins, transaction coordinators, virtual assistants, when we're talking about paying for leads. It is very easy for overhead to go way too high, okay? Between your staff, your tech, your space, your leads, it adds up fast. Gross spending behind revenue, not ahead of it. It's easy to chase the next shiny object, okay? The next CRM, the next lead provider, the next, AI tool. There's a million of them now, right? So making sure that you're actually paying attention to the numbers. And I would say monthly, especially if you're a new team, because that money will be lit on fire a lot quicker than you think, especially when you start hiring, okay? And then speaking of hiring and firing, all right? The saying goes, slow to hire, quick to fire, okay? You need to be quick to address problems. It's okay if you made a mistake and that person wasn't the person you thought they were, okay? Interview went great. When they got here and they clocked in, started to work, it did not go great, All right, let's address that immediately. They're burning up your money. And then once again, if you're one of those people that have a hard time having hard conversations, this is something to think about. Okay, the wrong person costs more than an empty seat, right? And the wrong person can kill culture faster than anything. Okay. So wrapping up, guys, as we're about to hit the mark, I know I've talked your ear off. I want to get into some questions if anybody has any. So build something bigger than yourself, especially when we're talking about creating a team and talking about scaling. You know, I see way too often that teams are created ego-driven. And while some of them obviously can be successful, I definitely believe, you know, you need to have the qualities of wanting to be able to pour back into somebody else, because that's what you're going to be doing a lot of. You're going to need to have the qualities of building people up, not knocking them down, right? And if you're somebody, let's say you're one of those agents that does a lot of business, but you're more so kind of a recluse. You don't get involved in a lot of the public realtor events. You don't get involved in a lot of things with EXP. It can be hard when creating a team, because you are now the lighthouse for that organization. You need to be front and center. You need to be engaging in opportunities and in events and conversations that market your team, that put your team on a pedestal, right? I would have never joined the Home Builders Association if I didn't think that it would later create opportunities to list new construction for my team, right? We wouldn't do certain things without having a desired outcome, and that desired outcome really does need to be opportunities and ways for your team and for your agents and for your admin to grow. And because when they grow, you grow. And that's not being cliche. I really mean it. You'll look back and you'll say, hey man, I did not do that much production this year, but my agents killed it. And numbers were, you know, record breaking, but I sold maybe a third of the homes I usually sell. That happens. You know what I'm saying? You have to let loose of the reins of your own business, you know, just I'm not in control anymore. It happens. Okay. You're in control of something bigger now. Right. So get the structure right, lead with a real value proposition and anchor it in values and mission. Then recruit, develop, and scale with intention. Right. Have a plan. Structure, pick the right team model, value, give agents a reason to join, and then people, the right people, hopefully. Right. Recruit, develop, retain, and then you scale, you grow with the plan. Okay, guys. So that's what I have for us today. What questions do we have? All right. Any solo agents or people that want to start a team have any questions about anything? Steven, rattle it off, brother. What you got?
Yeah, man. So my wife and I are going to have a domestic partnership
Yes, sir.
team. I'm not really interested in expanding out too much. So I kind of basically started over. I've been in real estate for 11 years. I went to
Yes,
D.R.
sir.
Horton for about 3 years.
Okay.
Came back. My wife and I are doing our own thing. So she's back at her license, like I said. So I'm kind of starting all over again, if you will.
Yeah.
I know you're kind of limited on time, but you know, we've like many realtors, and we tried this, we tried that. We pay a lot of money for this lead. You know, right now we are with 55 Places and neighborhoods.com and Homes for Heroes. Could you give me some guidance as far as like maybe some good ideas or things to look at as far as trying to get some more leads?
100%. I would say, and you're saying it's just going to be you and your partner, right?
Yes, my wife. Yeah.
Okay, your wife. I'm not going to lie, and this is what I recommend to even just agents getting into the industry. Are you in an area where they have, you know, a decent amount of new construction?
Oh yeah. Okay,
that's like half of America right now, right?
Big time. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Take, and this can be, you know, a little jarring for some people. Take as much content as you possibly can in new construction. And I'm gonna tell you why. It doesn't need to be front facing. It could just be you pointed, doing a quick little walkthrough, you know, this, that, and other. One new construction neighborhood, most time one new construction neighborhood, I know in our area, it'll have maybe 2 or 3 builders. Each builder has maybe like 3 or 4 floor plans. That's like 15 pieces of content if I just touch each floor plan, right? Okay, make it real simple. It doesn't need to be elaborate. You know, just hit the rooms, maybe talk about a couple of features. While you're out there in that new construction neighborhood, this has happened more times than I can count. You'll see somebody driving around looking at that new construction neighborhood. More times than not, you will see somebody driving around in a new construction neighborhood just looky-looing. And don't hesitate. Hey, you want to see this one? You want to check it out? I'm saying, you know, you're just looking. I've had several go under contract just for that alone. And that's just easy. That's just one thing, right? If you have tons of new construction, take advantage of it, right? Because when you're making the content, you're positioning yourself as somebody that is inside that realm of new construction, right? Not only that, you're getting the flyby traffic of these new construction neighborhoods, right? So it's all about really creating a process of taking in their information, really having a good buyer consult with them, showing the value you can bring to them, and then rinse and repeat. That's really what it is on that end. Now, don't get me wrong. If we're talking about actual lead sources, the best thing I can tell you, it's a slow play farming newsletter. Get you a good neighborhood, preferably your neighborhood. And what I would do is I would make something very small, simple on Canva that has a QR code on it that allows you to create a mailing list, right? And if you need to learn how to do that, YouTube would be your best friend. You know what I'm saying? And then just pass those little postcards out throughout your neighborhood. Anytime you ran into somebody at the store, hey man, this, that, and other. And all this newsletter is what's going on in the area.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I still have all the buyers that I had from D.O. Horton. I still
Okay.
have all of them, and they're my CRM. But
okay, 100%. So what I would do is, if you haven't already, I would send one newsletter that is a positioning newsletter for you, letting them know like, hey, this is where I'm at now. This is what I'm doing.
yeah,
right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. So when you're doing these newsletters, value, right? I would say, what's going on in the area. If you can partner with a local business to do maybe some type of discount, even if it's a 5% discount on some type of service or goods, whatever it may be, you know what I'm saying? And then have a house of the month. You know what I'm saying? At the bottom, in the middle, with a call to action to view the video itself or the more information, right? And that usually goes to your IDX page for that exact property. Okay. Now, I'll get your email, Stephen, because we can have a much more expanded conversation on this.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Because like I said before, there's a million ways to skin this cat. Okay.
Yeah.
But I would say is when you're looking at certain things, first and foremost, do it for 90 days. Right. And that's usually the hardest thing because things aren't going to work as soon as you put them into action.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I just started realtor.com market VIP, and it's in a very expensive lead source. I know I'm going to have to eat it for the first 90 days because that's just the name of the game. Right. You're going to have to put in the reps with whatever you're doing to be able to see results. And sometimes that hurts. Okay. But that's where it comes in, where you need to believe in whatever you're trying to do. Like, so if you're doing the new construction, you're talking to people, like you need to go out there and believe like, okay, this is going to generate me business. Because once you see somebody driving around, you believing that it's going to generate you business is going to give you the courage to say, hey, do you want to see this house?
Right.
You know,
because that 55 places, it's a good source.
Yeah.
They're like a year out, 2 years out. And it's like a high percent. It's like 40%.
Yeah.
It's insane.
And then I would also say is, Stephen, like in the meantime, build a very good nurture system, right? Because like I tell my agents, a year passes quicker than we think. 2 years passes quicker than we think. And when that does happen, you want to be top of mind, right?
I got to do a good drip campaign. I got to work on that.
I'm trying to tell you, man, a good drip campaign is worth its weight in gold. Okay. Yeah. Because, and then at a certain point, you and your wife will determine, like, once you actually get a good solid lead flow coming in, you're going to realize, okay, most of our leads are maybe 3 to 6 months. If you're lucky, 0 to 3 months, right? So anytime there's a lead that's maybe 6 to 12 months out, you throw them on that drip campaign. Now you have a plan, right? Because you're actively conversating, you're actively prospecting your 3 to 6 month clients, right? You're showing houses to the 0 to 3.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's all about the way I look at it. And I'm sorry to kind of go big on this one. The way I look at it is kind of a timeline, right? Because obviously, if we're looking at it 0 to 3 months, 3 to 6, 6 to 12, 12 plus, right? Think of each of those kind of milestones as a bucket. I want to fill as many people. I don't care if you're looking a year out. I want as many people in that bucket as possible. Right? I don't care if you're 6 to 12. I want as many people in that bucket as possible, because that 0 to 3 month bucket, it's going to move down. And it's going to move down. And it's going to move down. You know what I'm saying? So now in this season of your area, it may be a down season. It may be, holidays are starting back up, school's starting back up. So people are looking 6 to 12 months out, potentially, right? Just theoretically. I still want to get those people in. I still want to have a plan for them. I still want to maintain conversation, because I don't want spring to come around and then, I just got my hand in my pocket. Yeah. So it's sometimes very hard to pay attention to the people that aren't transacting now, especially as you become a team leader, Stephen. I'm not going to lie, but you need to have a plan for them. And that's the best advice I can give to you, especially on that aspect. But I'm gonna,
Yeah, we'll talk offline. Yeah.
I'm gonna do that, and we'll go deeper in that. Guys, any other questions that we may have? Anything that you've seen in your experience? You know, maybe you interviewed with a team lead and you know you had a bad experience. Maybe you joined a great team and you're like, I really love what this is doing. Or maybe you're in the trenches of creating your own team. If you're not going to ask a question now, don't hesitate to reach out to me because I am an open book. And as you can see, guys, I will talk your head off, especially about this subject. Because I'm very passionate about it. You know, I love my people, the people that are on my team. I want to see every single one of them win. I tell every single one of my agents, I want one or two things to happen. I either want to build you up so much that you leave me and I can be proud of the solo agent that you are or the team that you create, or you believe in our mission and our values so much that you want to help build our team. And like I said, guys, with the ability inside of EXP to scale, right? I have several conversations with my agents about creating their own. So my team is called the Yeti House, okay? Creating their own Yeti houses in different locations because EXP has afforded us that opportunity between the ability to do so and then also revenue share, right? As we're bringing people to EXP, as my agents are bringing people to my team, it's creating revenue share, which will then pay for them to go to a new area and start these teams, right? It's, of course, a lot more back end, a lot more wires to be uncrossed and stuff like that, but the pathway is there. And that's one thing that I'm very grateful for throughout EXP is just, there's not too many other firms that allow the flexibility that they've given us, right? And so even if you are not creating a team, see what the options are. It may benefit you in the long run, okay? But if we don't have any other questions, guys, this video will be posted tomorrow on our YouTube channel. We will make sure to post it inside the hub and our Facebook group so you can recap on it. They will have the link for this presentation in here. Guys, one quick shout out. I do want to say I'm having my second tools that should be illegal to know about in a couple weeks. I created this whole presentation. Of course, I did the whole outline, everything, a couple quotes and things like that. I put it in the Claude. It made this presentation in 15 minutes. I'm going to show you all how to do it in a couple weeks. Really how to tighten up your buyer consults, your listing presentations. Guys, this is HTML right now. As you can see, there's like, look, I can make it as big and small as you want. So it is mobile responsive, computer, iPad. It's amazing, okay? But we do these every single Tuesday, all right? I can't wait to see you guys next week. Guys, if y'all want to speak, all right, please reach out to me. I'd love to have y'all speak on a topic that you're so passionate about. I feel like we have a lot of great members here. I want to put y'all on center stage. And don't worry, you know what I'm saying? You'll be nervous in the beginning, but you'll get over it. You'll get over it. Put out that value, guys. Let's give back to each other and let's really try to make our businesses better. But until next Tuesday, if you need anything at all, reach out to me. Let's go close some deals. All right, guys. Onboarding.